Greetings, Sentinels fans! It's time to dive back into the Cauldron. So let's look at the heroes from the Stormfall and experimental expansions for the Cauldron, shall we? First off on our list is Cricket. This character probably originated out of a desire to do more with sonic damage, and she does pretty interesting things with sound. Her distinguished cards are the Sonic Amplifier, Swarm Frequency, and Vantage Point. These three cards pretty much show off her main jobs. Small time attacking, some minor but key defense, and support capabilities involving card draw and retrieval. As I love being an attacker, Sonic Amplifier is a personal favorite. Whenever Cricket deals sonic damage, then she may place the top card of her deck under the amplifier. This card will be used as ammunition for when you use the power on this card, which is to deal a target damage equal to the amount of cards under this one. So it works like Bunker's Omnicannon or Haka's Savage Mana, but is fueled by dealing sonic damage. This card also fuels itself, so once it gets some damage going, you can keep it up. This also works beautifully with one of her variants, adding more sonic damage and an extra power use. Vantage Point is a salvage card, like Reclaim for the Deep. The only difference is that it's a power activated rather than just a card play. So this party-wide free salvage can be great for recovering key setup cards or using powerful one-shots again. Swarm Frequency is my favorite of her defense cards, and while it is situational, most of these are. Swarm Frequency causes all villain damage to be redirected away from your heroes and to the environment targets. So in target-rich environments, this can offer your heroes a much-needed reprieve from villain damage. Next, we have Cypher. And I don't like this one, guys. Cypher is another take on Chrono Ranger's deal, where he gives individual boosts to himself and other heroes. There are plenty of issues with his deck that I may get into in a future video. His distinguished cards are the various summon cards for his augments, because man does he need them. Most of his deck is dependent on his augments, so he needs a method of gathering them. The best of the augments themselves will vary by preference and situation, so I will put Muscle Aug here. Last, he uses these augments either by affecting augmented heroes or destroying augs for various effects, with my favorite being this Deus Ex Human Revolution reference here. This card prevents damage done to augmented heroes until Cypher's next turn, and I love me a good shield card. But yeah, I think this one needs a more in-depth look, so let's just move on. Now we go to a person whose skin is also made of inorganic material, Titan. He takes a similar route as Writhe, where he has one card that informs more or less his entire deck. The difference here is that Titan is even less reliant on Titan form than Writhe is on his Shadow Cloak. Titan's distinguished cards are Titan form and the Chaplain. The Chaplain is the simpler of the two, just giving Titan two separate powers. Either deal a target 3 damage, and considering the handguns carried by both Chrono Ranger and Expatriate, that's a pretty powerful handgun. Or, if Titan form is in play, he can destroy an ongoing card. This card displays his role as a damage dealer, but also shows how his cards can have alternate or additional effects when Titan form is around. A decent amount of his cards have that attribute. Now, Titan form itself has some interesting effects on its own. In addition to unlocking extra effects in his various cards, whenever Titan is dealt damage, all future damage he takes is reduced by 1 until his next turn. And this effect stacks. So while this card won't do you much good against villains who deal single big hits, you will find a lot of good defense against threats who deal lots of little attacks. However, this isn't an overpowering defense, since it resets every round, making sure that the big guy still gets hurt every now and then. But that's not all. If you want a little oomph in your attacks, then whenever you deal damage, you may destroy Titan form in order to add 2 points of damage to your attack. This I do not usually do unless I have some method of getting the card back, but a good boost is nice to have if you need it. But moving on from a guy in the front lines to the woman in the chair, let's look at Echelon. Echelon is weird and maybe a bit underpowered, but I can't help but like her. A badass granny who primarily uses information and team communication to help, but is perfectly capable of entering the field. Like, seriously, she has to have bigger stones than any other member of the cast if she is going to run in and punch a freaking dragon while being owned and not having powers. Near as I can tell, she doesn't even carry a gun. Mad respect. Her distinguished cards are her Tactics, the Tesla Knuckles, and the Kestrel Mark II. The Kestrel is her aircraft, allowing her 2 powers, where she can deal a point of damage and heal 2. Using this power on the Kestrel every turn can make her a surprising tank sometimes. Or she can blow it up for a few card draws for a player. The Tesla Knuckles give her a power to deal a point of damage across the map, but it also gives her an end-of-turn effect where she deals a target damage equal to the amount of Tactics cards she destroyed that turn. A little bit of free damage is always nice. But you will notice that neither of these powers are particularly damaging. She's a very small-time damage dealer. No, She is a support by way of tactical advice and oversight. Each of the Tactics ongoing cards provide benefits for the whole party. Most of them, if you want to keep them in play, you will have to discard a card. Though personally, I don't think many of them are valuable enough to keep around for longer than a round or two. Thankfully, when most of these are destroyed, you also draw a card. Some other tactics, though, will destroy themselves at the start of their turn regardless, though those may give you other small benefits, like a healing point or a card draw for the party. Use these to get what your group needs to be an effective fighting machine. Next is Impact, Cauldron's take on a non-setup heavy damage dealer, though with a twist that he frequently blows up his own stuff to deal some extra hurting. His distinguished cards are Gravitational Lensing, Repulsion Field, and Spatial Finesse, with an honorable mention going to Meditate. Both Gravitational Lensing and Repulsion Field are pretty simple. Lensing gives a +1 to all of Impact's damage, which is pretty useful for a low-effort damage dealer. It also has a one-time bonus of allowing him to peek at his top 2 cards, where he can replace one and discard the other for some minor deck milling. Repulsion Field increases his defense, reducing all damage he takes by 1, while also giving a one-time effect of hitting all non-heroes a point of damage. Spatial Finesse is a welcome card for Impact, since not only it allows him to draw 2 cards, but also when an ongoing card would be destroyed, he can destroy Spatial Finesse in order to replay that ongoing card. Since a lot of his cards have him destroy his own stuff, this can increase the longevity of his setup and allow for some fun sneaky combos. Play around with Decaying Orbit with this for a good time. And of course, Meditation is a fun card where, whenever he deals damage, he may destroy this card in order to deal that damage again, essentially doubling his damage output for a single attack, useful for some quick disposal. And for my final entry, Magnificent Mara! We have a stage magician here, folks. Mara is a weird one, since she doesn't really have a set role. Her cards don't really come together to form a build. Instead, they give her a bunch of fancy tricks that can either be kinda nice, or be hugely effective. But unfortunately, that deck style doesn't really lend itself well to a distinguished cards list, but I will try my best. Her distinguished cards, such as they are Improbable Escape, the Mesmer Pendant, and Convincing Double. Improbable Escape is one of those rare safety net cards like Silver Lining or Ages of Resurrection, but this one could save the life of any of your heroes in your lineup. A free rescue is very nice to have, giving that small nudge towards safety. Now just like those other cards, Escape destroys itself upon rescuing a hero, but still, it's nice. Also, the extra card draw for Mara whenever one of her ongoing cards gets destroyed is something she sometimes needs so she can get to some of her less niche cards. Now, of all of her niche cards, Mesmer Pendant is probably my favorite. You attach this card to one of the bad guys and it takes over their mind. Any damage they do can be redirected elsewhere. Unfortunately though, you can only place it on a non-character card, which makes it a bit less helpful against lone wolf villains. But still, it's a one-turn rest the mind, lots of fun. And now, Convincing Double. This card is the missing link in the guy's shenanigans that I pointed out in the Undying Distinguished Cards list. This card allows one hero to use a one-shot belonging to another hero, so get Mara and Guys in the same room together and you have the ultimate in game-breaking nonsense. Play Convincing Double and she will play another player's one-shot, and let yet another hero, which could be herself, but not necessarily, play as if it were theirs. Just imagine letting Impact use Wrathful Retribution and then having Meditation destroy itself to use it again. That's the kind of wackiness I'm thinking. Now these cards are only a few of the crazy things that she can do, but they are my favorites. And thus ends another Distinguished Cards list. I hope it has been helpful and that you have enjoyed it. Take care, friends. But also when an ongoing card would be destroyed, he could destroy not facial, spatial. But also when an ongoing card would be destroyed, he could destroy Spatial Finesse in order to replay that ongoing card. Ah, God. But also when an ongoing card would be destroyed, he could destroy facial... But also when an ongoing card would be destroyed, he can destroy facial... And for my final entry, Magnificent Mara! Woo!